Chapter 20. My body froze in place as brakes shrieked and tires bit the pavement. A whoosh of air pressed against me as the sound of crunching metal and smashing glass blasted through the night air. The burning stench of treading singed from tires made me cough. Holy shit! I'm alive? I opened my eyes. I was still standing in the middle of the road. I turned to find the car on the sidewalk behind me. It had veered to avoid me and ran into a light pole. The hood was crumpled, and the front window was smashed, lifeless airbags draped over the broken dashboard. I stepped toward the car. My mind was spinning like a treadmill stuck in high gear, but my body wasn't keeping up. Were they okay? Perhaps they needed medical attention. Where was Dagor? Where was my adrenaline rush to push me through this? I heard running footsteps closing in. 2 arms circled around and brought me to the side of the road.
"Stay here,"
he said. I nodded. David jogged to the car and peered into the driver's window. He said something to the person inside and then proceeded around to the front of the vehicle. A car with a smashed rear window and bullet holes rolled next to me.
"What happened?"
Maya asked from the passenger seat. I took a breath to keep me from stuttering. Dagor caught me, and then a car swerved to miss me. Maya glanced over to the totaled car. Her breath hitched as she spotted him. David.
"David?"
She whispered to herself, not believing what she was seeing. He glanced over at the same time she spoke his name. He was caught in the headlights, bright as day and glued to his spot like a deer. Maya gaped.
"Is that David?"
I nodded and smiled. Tears bubbled up and streamed down her cheeks. She struggled with her seatbelt, trying to escape from the car and run to her long-missing husband. David, realizing there was no way out and that his disappearing act was blown, ran to his Maya.
"David, is that really you?"
She cried, yanking on her seatbelt.
"I can't get this thing off."
David smiled as he watched her struggle. The love in his eyes was full to the brim as he ducked his head into the car to help her. She bounded out of the car and into his arms. Their embrace was something from a war story, the soldier returning to his true love. It was full of the pain they had to endure, the struggles they overcame, and the love that was never questioned nor ended. I had to look away. It was all too sweet and emotionally charged. I wiped away a stupid tear away that popped up unexpectedly. I jogged over to the crumpled car. It seemed as though Muffin wasn't a mushy reunion fan either, and followed me over. "I thought you were staying at the apartment," I said.
"We were, but then Maya saw Katerina drive past. We thought she might give you some trouble."
I rounded to the driver's side and peeked in. Katerina was pinned inside the car with Pierre knocked out cold next to her. "Kat, are you okay?" I asked.
"Yes, I should have run you over instead of the damn light pole. I didn't want to damage the memory card in case it was on you. We were tailing Dagor, hoping he would lead us to you."
I ignored her comments. "Is he okay?" I asked, pointing to Pierre.
"I'm sure he'll live, but there's a gash on his head. I've already called for an ambulance. I better get paid. Do you have the memory card?"
"I thought it was in the trophy," I said. "You should get a real job."
"I don't have to get a job. Now that you ruined my car, I'm going to sue you. I'm feeling like I might not be able to walk, at least not until a lot of medical bills are paid and a hefty sum is paid for damages and psychological trauma."
Muffin's hand shot through the window and grabbed a wad of cat's hair. She yelped as Muffin yanked on it.
"You won't sue her because you'll have to deal with me."
"I'll sue you too, you gorilla."
Muffin glanced at me.
"She doesn't learn, does she?"
"Nope." With her free hand, Muffin plucked out a pocket knife from her pants pocket. She flipped it open and held it to Kat's hair.
"Do you want to keep your hair, or do you want to sue us?"
Muffin asked.
"I can buy hair extensions with the money I'll win."
She sneered.
"You might win a settlement, but we have no money. Good luck getting a dime from either of us."
Muffin yanked on Kat's hair to expose her neck. She scraped the knife edge along her throat. I knew Muffin was a con artist and not a killer, but even I was momentarily afraid for Kat's life.
You're trapped like the rodent you are. Do you really want to mess with me? Maybe a deep, ugly scar on your face would keep you in line.
Katerina's eyes bugged out.
Okay, I won't sue.
See, that wasn't so hard.
Muffin said, releasing her hair and pocketing the knife.
I hate you.
My eyes drifted to the light pole. A bloodstain trailed down it. I hesitantly stepped near the front of the car.
Don't look.
David warned. He strolled toward me, hand in hand with Maya.
It's Daegor and he's beyond dead. Splattered is more like it.
50 pounds of fear, stress, and anxiety shed from my body instantly. Hearing he was dead was like a soothing lullaby. Everything was going to be okay. My life would be normal again. Thank you, Kat, I said.
Whatever.
She replied. Sirens shouted their arrival in the distance. I looked over to see Muffin scurrying around, searching for the best place to hide.
Damn! There's no place to go,
She said. Looking for a place to hide? I asked.
Yeah, maybe.
Bonnie Lane, I already know about you. If you promise to annul your marriage to Frankie and vacate the building, you can take Maya's car and stay at my place for tonight only. Then you have to leave. Maya wouldn't let David out of her sight and would tag along with him. Her car was now junk, and Muffin was starting to grow on me. Like a junkyard dog who snarls, makes messes, and doesn't follow directions, she can be protective and helpful. At times.
Deal!
She said, and took off. She jumped into the car just as the police and ambulance rounded the corner. She peeled down the street. The EMTs rushed over to Katerina and Pierre. A brief glance at Daegor told them he was beyond help. I stayed and answered a few questions, but knew I needed sleep desperately. I was a physical and emotional plate of spaghetti confusion.
Where are you staying tonight?
David asked. I pressed the memory card into the palm of his hand. It doesn't matter. Daegor is dead and I'm alive. If I slept in the sewer, I'd be very content. David smiled at the memory card.
Stay with Maya.
I shook my head. I think you two need some time alone, and I have to feed Gus. I'll sleep on the chapel couch after it closes. He gave me a kiss on the cheek.
Thank you.
David plucked Maya up and carried her in his arms down the road to the corner store where he was parked. I heard her giggle as he began jogging to rush her home. I smiled. I had one stop to make before I could sleep. I traipsed the few blocks back to Sergio's apartment and rode the elevator to his floor. I kicked open the wedged door. Sergio was still out searching for Daegor, and I didn't have a phone to call him. I'd wait inside. I perched in front of his laptop, contemplating a thought I'd had earlier. If David had the memory card with the information, then he would give it to the mysterious third party. I didn't know who they were or what their intention was, but I trusted David to give the information to a worthy source. Why couldn't Sergio have it as well? It was information on his brother. He wanted to protect his mother and destroy the horrid family business. If he had information about whether his brother was alive, then he could plan accordingly and not be blindsided or plotted against. He was a good man with a horrible past and a hazy future. Why shouldn't I help him? I typed Terminator into the password field and hit enter. Downloading the email file to his drive, I saved it with his password so only he could open it. On a piece of scratch paper, I scribbled a note that only he would understand. At least I hoped. Otherwise, it would just be embarrassing. The goddess has found the key to her Terminator's heart. Use your drive and ambition to win the family over. I closed the computer and laid the note on top. More stress trickled from my pores and freed me from yet another fiasco. Sergio would go home and face a long road ahead. I would miss him, but as a friend. Anything else would mean complications. I'm a simple girl who just wants to play poker. I found my way to the parking lot. I was light as air. My troubles were almost gone. I could practically skip home fueled with happiness. And I might have to. I didn't have any money, and Sergio's moped was at the chapel. And no cell phone either. I groaned but commenced my journey home step by step. It felt good. 2 hours later, I reached the chapel parking lot. Lucille was still in her spot, looking disheveled. The window was still broken in my apartment, and swaying couples deliriously happy on rum and pheromones were stumbling out of Lenny's bus and into the chapel.
Nadia!
Frankie hollered at me from the door. He'd given up on the chicken costume and was wearing a medieval tunic with green tights. A green hat with a red feather told me Robin Hood was the celebrity of the night.
Where have you been? Did you forget you were working tonight?
I was running on vapors, and I had to work tonight. Ugh, was there no end to this day? I forgot. I'll throw on my uniform.
Hurry up. I'm already working on the paperwork and we have a line. Lenny must have found a drink special somewhere.
I ran up the stairs and searched the hallway for my uniform. I could hear Muffin rustling around inside the apartment. I found my uniform laying on my dresser in the hallway so I didn't have to go inside. I stripped off my clothes and threw them on the couch next to Gus. He twitched. I was hoping it wasn't from foul body odor I might have worked up from my walk. I didn't have time to worry about it, and drunk people don't notice smells. I wiggled into my white faux leather uniform and go-go boots and ran back downstairs. I slid into the chapel lobby and snatched the paperwork from Frankie. He picked up his quiver and arrows and leaped to his place at the altar. The waiting couples applauded. Vivian and Bernie were ready in their seats as the witnesses. I surveyed paperwork for the first couple. I could barely make out their names. Is there a Peeper Pants or Weaselwood here? A couple waved their hands. I helped them into a standing position and ushered them to the aisle facing the proper way. They were on their own from there. I switched on the music. A minstrel strummed his stringed instrument. It reminded me of a Renaissance fair, light and playful. The couple made their way to the altar. I stayed to make sure they arrived still standing.
Can I play with your arrow?
Peeper Pants asked Robin Hood. Robin Hood studied the man.
You sure you want to ask a man that question when you're marrying a woman?
Peeper Pants pondered for a moment and shrugged. Frankie smirked and began the ceremony. I ducked back into the lobby to assemble it into some sort of order. I hurriedly ushered couples in and out of the chapel for 2 hours until we were nearly caught up. That must have been one hell of a drink special. I heard the front door open and glanced up to see a man enter. He was in his late 20s and by himself. He was about 5'11", give or take an inch, and was completely and utterly breathtaking. I immediately studied his eyes. Breathtakingly gorgeous men that were in my hemisphere had one thing in common: the family surname of Miller. I'm sure Caleb's a cousin.
I'm looking for Nadia,
He said with a rich, velvety voice. You found her, I said, guarding my suspicion of him. He was a Miller, and I had a palpitating vibe that he was Ian, Grayson's and David's brother. I didn't know why he was in the chapel asking for me. He addressed me with his damn steel-gray eyes.
You're Nadia?
Yes? Why?
I was asked to give this to you.
He said, setting my phone on the counter. You were able to see Grayson? I asked with an arched brow. He shook his head.
No, that Fiona woman has some serious control issues. Remy asked me to deliver it.
I nodded, understanding the situation fully. Thank you. He smiled, lighting up his mischievous eyes.
So, you work here?
Obviously, I said bluntly. Remembering he wasn't the enemy, just the enemy's brother, I lightened my tone. I work here to help pay bills. I normally play poker.
That's how you met Grayson and Remy?
Yes, and then David.
You knew David?
I still know him. He's made a comeback. Ian stared at me with disbelief.
Since when?
If you want to get technical, he officially came back tonight. He's with Maya at home right now. Don't you dare disturb them.
I won't.
He shook his head, having a hard time grasping that his long-lost brother was found and safe at home.
I'm stunned.
I smiled and called the next couple to the altar. He waited for me until I finished assisting them.
How long have you known him?
He asked when I returned. Only a few weeks. His eyes rounded.
I think I need the whole story. Do you mind if I wait here? I'll buy you a drink after work and we can talk.
Sure, I said. All I wanted to do was to crash on the couch and sleep, but Ian needed to hear the story of his brother. I couldn't leave him in wonder. It's been an exhaustingly long day, so I don't want to stay out too late,
I'll take whatever time you can give me.
he said with a smile that reminded me too much of Grayson.
I want to go too.
Frankie said behind me, propping up a man who stumbled in the aisle.
We can close up shop early. The couples were storming in here earlier, but now they're only trickling in.
Frankie knows David too, I explained to Ian. It's easier if you let Frankie come along than to try to tell him no.
Isn't that the truth? You should listen to your own advice sometimes and stop telling me no.
I'd welcome the extra company.
Ian said. I nodded. Closing early would mean going to bed early. I couldn't complain. I helped the next couple with their paperwork and showed them to the aisle where I flipped on the music and watched to make sure they made it down to the altar. I turned back around to find Ian watching me. What? I asked him, not liking his gray eyes on me or anywhere near me. It only brought back flashbacks, and I didn't want them to haunt me.
I'm curious about you. I'm trying to figure out how you know both of my brothers and have become such a permanent fixture in their lives in such a short period of time. And one brother was missing at the time, too.
Am I that wretched of a person to make it such a stretch of your imagination? I know I must look a mess, but like I said, it's been a long day.
Not at all. I already like you. Now I'm trying to figure you out.
There's not too much to figure out, and I'm not a permanent fixture. I've already been banned from Grayson's casino.
Don't worry. I've been banned from his casinos before.
He smiled a full-on Miller smile that was devastatingly handsome. His supple lips framed his straight white teeth. Dark, carefree hair hung near his gray eyes and thick lashes. I turned to help a couple exiting the chapel. Frankie leaped to the door and called it quits for the night. There was no one left to marry.
I need a drink,
he said.
Let's go find the bar with the drink specials that are knocking everyone on their asses.
Just make it quick. I already feel like I'm drunk from sleep deprivation.
You didn't have a bad day like I did. Muffin destroyed my car and the police didn't even nab her yet. Is she in your apartment?
Yes, but she promises to divorce you and leave the apartment tomorrow.
Thank the Lord. What about my reward?
She chose to leave of her own free will. I think you should let her go.
What about my yacht?
You can rent one for the day with the gig money you owe me. Frankie's eyes lit up.
Oh, that's much better. Then I don't have to haul it around. It would take up the entire chapel parking lot if I had to store it.
Are you going to change? I asked him.
Heck no. Do you see how fabulous my legs look in these tights?
Ian's lips twitched, fighting a smile.
Come on, Robin Hood. I'll buy you a drink.
Frankie took Ian's arm and led him out the door.
So you're a Miller, huh? Are you rich too? You've got them fine GQ looks?
I shook my head and followed them out the door, locking it on my way out. Hopefully this night would end soon. My eyes cracked open to a dark room. A splash of sun snuck between the thick drapes. I unwrapped myself from the covers and propped myself up. My head was cloudy from the drink last night. I remembered I only had one drink, but it was large and fruity and went down way too fast. Being hungry and tired added to the cocktail's potent fuel. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and glanced around the room. It was foreign to me but looked like a hotel room. Maybe it was familiar. I slipped out from the bed and threw open the curtains. The sudden light blinded me. I blinked as my eyes adjusted. I wanted to close them again. Memories from the night before flooded to me. Memories that couldn't possibly be true. It must have been a dream. Surely I wouldn't. No, I couldn't have. Did I? I steeled myself and turned back to the room. My eyes found the bed, and I gaped in stunned horror at Ian lying there. Even asleep, he could capture attention. He was Sleeping Beauty in male form. His bare chest was toned and tanned from his extensive traveling adventures. I didn't want to investigate to see what he was or wasn't wearing under the covers. Oh God, did I sleep with him? The image of 4 angry faces lashed out at me. Grayson, David, Caleb, and Remy would have my head for this. But surely I didn't sleep with him. It's all a misunderstanding. I must have been drunk with nowhere to sleep because Muffin had my bed. Ian must have been helpful and offered to share his room. Yes, that must be it. I nodded vigorously to make it true. I pried my eyes away from Ian's form to scan the room. They cast upon a small table near the bed. I tiptoed to the table. My heart sank to the plush carpeting as I spied a souvenir photo of Ian, Robin Hood, and me at the altar, making silly faces at the lopsided camera. My fingers snatched the souvenir certificate of marriage sitting next to the picture. One glance at the signatures of Peeper Pants and Weaselwood as the witnesses had my fingers curling around the paper. As I watched the paper crumple violently in my hands, my eyes snapped to my ring finger. A pink plastic vending machine ring encircled it. It all pointed to the same horribly distressing fact. I married Ian, and I was in Grayson's casino. I shook my head. No, this can't be happening. Ian wouldn't marry a complete stranger, and neither would I. And Frankie wouldn't marry me to Ian, knowing I still had feelings for Grayson. There had to be a mistake. This was all a joke, and nothing happened. It's just a spoof. I nodded my head. Yes, that's what happened. It's the only explanation. Ian stirred on the bed and blinked his eyes open. His sleepy eyes registered me, and a dreamy, seductive smile curled on his lips.
Good morning, my sweet wife.
I'm going to kill Frankie. This has been High Stakes, written by Nicolette Pierce, digitally narrated with full cast of voices. Copyright 2013 by Nicolette Pierce. Production, copyright 2025 by Pierced Heart Publishing.